How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball and welcome back to another episode for you guys. And we're going to be doing Review the Prem, which is the review episode from Predict the Prem, where me and my brother went head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. And we have a scoring system between us as well, which is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And we have our star man picks as well. Once you pick that man, you cannot pick them again for the rest of the season. And it's 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. And let's see how we got on the first weekend of the Premier League, starting off with Burnley against Manchester City, which finished 3-0 to Man City. Sim went 3-1, I went 2-0, but it was a bit in the middle at 3-0, so we both got a point for this one. Erling Haaland starting the season as he pretty much finished off last season, and he went through the whole season, but brilliant second goal from Erling Haaland. But I thought Man City, it was pretty much how we predicted, a demolition job of Burnley.
I was a bit disappointed with Burnley, to be honest. I thought first home game of the season, Kompany against his old club, I thought they'd be able to maybe test Man City a bit more, but it was really, really easy for Man City to keep them out. There was a few hairy moments when Burnley were pressing high and nearly kind of caused Man City problems, but literally it was 1 or 2 moments throughout the whole 90 minutes. It was complete domination and control from City, and it was very, very easy. Haaland continues his incredible goal-scoring feat, and I really liked what Man City were doing in the second half when Burnley clearly had a different approach of pressing a bit higher to try and get back in the game, and Ederson just constantly went into Haaland direct, and that's not something you associate with Man City. You associate them with like passing total control possession, but I think it was a clear direction from Guardiola in that second half. Go direct to Haaland because that's where the space is, and I think it worked a treat in that second half. They really struggled to deal with him, and I think that's a tactic they're going to be using a lot more throughout the season, so keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I mean, Pep is forever changing things up, isn't he? That's why he's the greatest manager, in my opinion. And, you know, no Ruben Dias, no Gvardiol, no problem, still a clean sheet. Kevin De Bruyne goes off after 23 minutes with a reoccurrence of the injury from the Champions League final, but it's not going to hurt them at all, is it?
Look, they got the squad at the moment. I know I still think they're short of a couple numbers, but I think to get through an away tie away at Burnley the way they did, they got the squad to manage that. You know, when you got people like Kovacic coming on, Gvardiol came on late on, it shows the options they have.
Yeah. So 1 point each for that one. Let's move over to Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. Both of us went for 4-0 to Arsenal, but it only finished 2-1 to Arsenal, so both of us getting a point on this one. Look, I think for 75 minutes, Arsenal were in complete control of this game. They weren't really creating too many clear-cut chances, to be honest, but they did have complete control. 2 brilliant goals from Arsenal to take the lead 2-0. And once it went 2-1, I mean, Nottingham Forest looked like they potentially could get back into the game, but the quality wasn't really there.
Yeah, I think it could have been a different game if Brennan Johnson would have taken that chance really early on, because I think it really ruined the game plan for Nottingham Forest once Arsenal took the lead instead of Brennan Johnson, you know, finding a bit of quality. So that was a big moment in the game. I think Arsenal did really struggle, surprisingly, to break down this stubborn Nottingham Forest team. But when you've got moments, you've got star players like Martinelli and Saka on the wings, they can provide moments of quality in isolation. And that's exactly what they did. A brilliant pirouette from Martinelli to open up the game for Nketiah to score. A bit lucky with deflection, but you earn that luck with a bit of skill. And then what a goal from Saka, absolute banger. And that's, if he's going to provide that kind of quality week in, week out, you know, I mean, he was doing it last season, but that was an unbelievable strike, and he's adding that to his game, so that's really impressive. But I thought there was just a bit, I kind of felt like Arsenal felt the game was won at 2-0,
yeah,
and they kind of let the game kind of pass them by, didn't really threaten to score a third goal, and I think that really suited Forest, and they got back in the game late on, and with a bit more luck they might have created more in the last 10 minutes, but Arsenal kind of rode their luck a bit in the last 10 minutes and saw the victory. But I think Arteta will be mindful that it wasn't the best display, but look, they didn't play well and they won, and on the back of last season, when they want to be in a title challenge, I think they'll take it.
Yeah, I think Arteta will be really frustrated with the way they ended the game, to be honest, because if they would have come up against a better side, I reckon they would have got back into that game, and Arteta will be drilling that home to them. But Nottingham Forest, I mean, they were trying, they penned Arsenal in a little bit, but they just couldn't get their passing moves going. Every pass was just a wayward pass, either heavy or too light, and it was very frustrating to watch. But let's move on to Bournemouth against West Ham, which finished 1-1 on the day. Sim went 2-0, I went 2-1, both to Bournemouth. So we both, no one gets a point for this one. Jared Bowen, opens the scoring just after half-time. Dominic Solanke gets the equaliser just about 10 minutes or just under 10 minutes from the end of the game. What did you make out of this one?
I think the game pretty much went as you'd expect because of the way Bournemouth are now trying to play their football under Iraola, but a lot more possession-based, a lot more intense than maybe under last season under Gary O'Neill. And I think we saw signs of that against West Ham. They dominated possession. They were the one getting a lot of the shots and the attacks. But as you'd expect, West Ham were actually threatening on the counter-attack and maybe creating the better chances. Souček hit the post early on. Bournemouth had a few chances in the first half without really threatening to score. West Ham obviously took the lead probably against the run of play with an absolute cracker from Bowen outside the box out of absolutely nothing. It was a really, really good strike. But credit to Bournemouth, didn't let their heads drop. They kept pushing. Late equaliser from Solanke. And they were a bit unlucky maybe not to win it late on as well after putting West Ham under a bit of pressure. Moyes, I think, will be happy to come away with a point with all the circumstances surrounding their summer, and none of the signings I don't think were in place for this game. So I think there's a lot more to come from West Ham. I think Bournemouth, on the other hand, a bit disappointed they didn't take the victory, but were encouraged with the way they played, and if they can keep improving in that direction, I think they're in for a good season.
Yeah. Next up, Brighton against Luton in Luton's first game in the Premier League. It finished 4-1. Sim went for 4-1. I went for 3-0, so I get a point for this one. Sim gets a big, fat 5-pointer in the first 5-pointer of the season. And you know what? It shouldn't have been, because that penalty was never a penalty. In a million years, that was never a penalty. But look, don't take away anything from Brighton, because they were really good in this game. They absolutely tore Luton to shreds for pretty much the whole game. Goals from Solly March, João Pedro from the spot, Simon Adingra and Evan Ferguson really late on. Two debutants, 2 goals. I mean, Adingra comes off the bench and scores, and João Pedro gets one from the spot. João Pedro did miss a few easy chances throughout the game, to say the least. But, I mean, they just keep pulling these signings through. Adingra, where's he come from?
Yeah, apparently he was, I can't remember, I read what league he was in last season. It was one of the lesser-known leagues, but apparently he had really good goal contributions for a really young winger. So he's probably one to watch out for as well. In selling Moises Caicedo for 100 million doesn't seem to make a massive difference. We've seen last season, even when they got players injured, they're happy to put people like Pascal Gross right back and just manage the situation. And De Zerbi's doing a fantastic job. They started as they mean to go on this season with a 4-1 win over Luton. I think Luton really struggled in this game to really impact it. They got the only real way they were kind of attacking Brighton was from set pieces, and they had a couple of opportunities, but nothing really too threatening. And Brighton were just dominating possession, creating chances at will. Shots galore, over 4 XG for Brighton, I think, tells the story of the game with how dominant they were and how many chances they created. So another impressive display. But from Luton, I think their tests, look, Brighton away was always going to be a difficult start for them. I think whether they stay up or not is not going to be determined whether they lose away at Brighton. It's going to be in their home games against bottom half teams, whether they can get the points in those kind of games. But they'll be a bit disappointed at the lack of impact they really had in this game. But another brilliant display from Brighton.
Yeah, it must be frustrating for Luton, because they can't have a home game for the first 4 weeks of the season or something like that. And I think it's where their home form is going to be a massive thing for Luton. So I envisage maybe a really slow start to the season for Luton, but when the home games start coming in, maybe that's where they look to really pick up the points. But next up is Everton against Fulham. Finished 1-0 to Fulham on the day. Both of us gone for 1-0 to Everton, so 0 points again on the table for us. And you know what? Everton probably should have picked up the points. Bernd Leno was man of the match on the day. They had copious amounts of chances. Leno made copious amounts of saves, and Fulham just nick it at the end of 15 minutes to go with Bobby Decordova-Reid. Yeah,
really unfortunate for Everton. Sean Dyche must be absolutely fuming with the fact that all those chances they created, especially Maupay and Decore having really clear opportunities in that first half, one-on-one situations, and not being clinical enough to take them. They had a really unlucky moment where they had a goal ruled out for a foul on the keeper, which I felt was really harsh, because I felt Leno just made a mistake. I think he came too far out his goal, and there was no foul on him whatsoever, and he dropped the ball, and he's very lucky that the referee blew his whistle for the foul there. So I think Everton got hard done by, and I felt like Fulham Well, to be fair to Fulham, they probably were out of it in the first half. They did grow into it a bit in the second half, and they did get a bit of reward for that goal that they created through D. Cordova-Reid. But I think Everton, if they keep playing like that at home and keep putting pressure on the opposition like they did, I think the results will come. They need to find a way to be able to be more clinical. That was their big problem. I think Danjuma came on and missed a one-on-one as well when Leonard comes streaming at his goal, and if he just hits the target, he probably scores. That was also a big moment for Everton. So encouraging performance, but it's a bit frustrating for them. And also, will they be able to create the same level of chances as they did consistently as they did on the weekend? We'll have to remain to be seen. But I think as a performance, it was probably a good one from Everton. Fulham got a bit lucky, but I think that's how it goes sometimes in football.
Yeah, I think Everton will be all right this year with Sean Dyche. He's a man that knows what he's doing, in my opinion. And their home form was all right, was okay last season. It was their away form that really let them down. And I think if they can pick up a couple of points away from home here and there, I really believe they'll be all right this season. But moving on to Sheffield United against Crystal Palace, finished 1-0 to Palace. Both of us, well, Sim went for 1-1. I went for 1-0 to Sheffield United. And you know what? After seeing that, I think Sheffield United are going to really struggle this season. Sold two of their best players. Crystal Palace completely dominated them, to be honest, in possession, in the chances. Eberechi Eze was causing them no ends of problems, and Oderson Edouard gets the goal just after half-time. Probably should have been more, to be honest.
Yeah, I have to say, if you're getting dominated like that with a Palace team without Olise, Eze was pretty much... I know Eze's a class player, but if you're looking at their team, there was really no one that much to worry about apart from Eze in the team. And they still struggled to create any sort of opportunities. They maybe had one shot which was deflected on the edge of the box from their number 32, I can't remember his name, which flashed just wide in the first half. But other than that, they did struggle badly. And they've lost Ndai, they've lost Anderberger. Like, I don't know where they go from here after a performance like that. It's really, really worrying if they're not going to get any more signings before the end of the transfer window. Palace was so dominant. And this is a Palace team, I know, like, they did really well last season when Hodgson came in and he improved them. But this is not, like, Palace under Hodgson is not a team you expect to be dominating possession and, really attacking. You expect them to be, like, hard to beat and low block and that kind of stuff. But they were so dominant in this game. That's got to be a massive worry for Sheffield United in their first home game of the season. You expect the players to be really up for it and really have a good go at Palace. And they just weren't able to do it. They just didn't have the quality to create any sort of opportunities. That's got to be a massive red flag. Yeah,
no Elise as well. No Zaha, obviously. He's gone now. So, I mean, with the Palace team, that's front line have been completely depleted. They had Jordan Ayew, Oderson Edouard and Eberechi Eze. I mean, Eze is a great player, but the other ones, I mean, they're okay. I mean, they're nothing special. So Sheffield United probably would have gone into this game with a little bit of confidence, taken that as a little bit of confidence, but just didn't seem that way whatsoever. The late game on Saturday was Newcastle against Aston Villa, finished 5-1 to Newcastle. Both of us going for 1-1 in this game, and how wrong were we? Newcastle were absolutely brilliant. Sandro Tonali, I thought, had an unbelievable performance for his debut, gets a goal in the first 6 minutes of the game. Isaac was absolutely brilliant with 2 goals on the day. Callum Wilson comes on and scores, and Harvey Barnes comes on and gets a golden assist as well. So I think Aston Villa are going to be worried with the way they played against against Newcastle in this game. With their bit of a high line, Pau Torres coming on for the injured Tyrone Mings really struggled, as well as their other defenders as well. But a bit of a welcome to the Premier League for Pau Torres in this one.
I thought, to be fair to Villa, in the first half it was very even, and I thought actually they gave as good as they got. Newcastle took a really early lead, and then they equalised pretty early on, pretty quickly with Moussa Diaby, and they were looking quite like threatening, and Diaby had a few opportunities in that first half to get in behind. They were very much sitting in that kind of lower block in the first half, trying to contain Newcastle. Unluckily for them, though, Isaac gets that goal from a set piece, which was borderline offside. It went their way, and I think that really changed the game plan for Unai Emery in that second half. Obviously, they lost Tyrone Mings to a really bad injury in the first half as well, which might have affected them. And I think in the second half, for the first 25 minutes or so, again, it was quite even, but a terrific mistake, I think, was from Ezri Konsa in the penalty area, allowing Isaac to kind of walk in, outmuscle him and chip the keeper. That was the big changing point in this game, because I think at that point, at 3-1, Villa had to kind of go for broke and really go to a higher line than they would have liked to. And I don't think Villa, in a weird way, in possession, I think Unai Emery likes to play a bit like a Conte or Mourinho, likes to play a bit more in the transition, likes to play a bit more counter-attacking. And when he's asked to play a bit more on the front foot and like take the game to Newcastle, that's where all the trouble came from, because I don't think they have the patterns of play in possession to really hurt a good defensive team like Newcastle. And Newcastle, this is perfect for them. They just brought on Harvey Barnes, they brought on Callum Wilson, and they just ran them in behind, and they were causing havoc in the last 20 minutes. And time and time again, they were just getting in behind. As you say, Pau Torres was really struggling in the high line. And I think when they were being counter-attacked on, they really struggled to contain Newcastle, and it ended up being a 5-1. I think without that mistake from Concert, I think it's maybe a different game. I think maybe it would have been a lot of a closer scoreline. I think that game, that goal ruined their game plan, and they didn't let Newcastle did end up running riot, but I think it could have gone differently if individual mistakes went different ways. So I think 5-1 probably on the balance of chances is a fair reflection of the scoreline, but I think on the balance of how the game could have gone, I think another day probably wouldn't have ended up 5-1.
Just Isaac looked absolute dynamite though, didn't he? I mean, I think he's in for an absolutely massive season for Newcastle, but Aston Villa, with all the positive talk about their summer business and everything like that, to come into the first game of the season and to lose 5-1 is a massive kick in the teeth to them and Unai Emery. But I do suspect they will pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and get back to things and start being tight at the back again, because I imagine that Villa will get quite a few clean sheets this year.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for
absolutely. Them. Next up, the Sunday games: Brentford against Tottenham, which finished 2-2. Sim went for 2-1 to Spurs. I went for 2-2. So Simmy gets 0 points. I get the second 5-pointer of the season. And you know what? I think 2-2 was probably a fair reflection of the game in this one. Spurs were dominated possession, but without really making too many clear-cut chances. And Brentford on the breakaway were looking good and dangerous and created probably better chances than Tottenham throughout the day. So I think on balance of play, Spurs did dominate the game, but Brentford created the better chances. So I'd say 2-2 was a fair result in this one.
Yeah, I would say in the first half, Tottenham were a lot more open and were in terms of defensively, and were getting caught on the transition more consistently. Despite taking an early lead, Brentford responded really well and went into half-time. Well, actually, we equalised right on the stroke of half-time to make it 2-2, but it wouldn't have been unfair on Brentford if they went into half-time at 2-1 up. They did really well catching Tottenham in the transition, but I thought in the second half, Tottenham did start to take total control, but unfortunately for them, with all the control and domination, there wasn't too many chances to kind of take from that. Richarlison maybe having the best one, which was a good save from Flecken. So that'll be a bit of a disappointment from Spurs, although there will be encouragement with how they're able to dominate games and the different style of play they're now going to implement under Ange Postecoglou. So there was promising sides from Tottenham, but still definitely a work in progress. Brentford will probably be happy with a point as well, given they were dominated for a lot of the game, and they did create chances mostly in the first half, but given that they were dominated so much in the second half, they'll probably be happy with their defensive performance as well. So both teams probably take the positives from this game. Yeah,
and I'll say a top performance from the Brentford defender, Rico Henry. I thought he was really good on the day, grabbing an assist I think he got as well. So it's 8-7 to myself. Let's move on to Chelsea against Liverpool, which finished 1-1. Sim went for 2-2, so he gets a point. I went for 1-1, so another 5-pointer comes my way on the Sunday. And this was a really good game of football, to be honest. In the first half, I thought Liverpool were the better team. It was 1-1 at half-time with 2 disallowed goals, 1 apiece. But I thought Chelsea really started to take control in that second half and probably should have gone on to win the game. I think Chilwell was absolutely brilliant on that side. Nicholas Jackson, I thought as well, had a good game and probably should have got a goal to his name. But I think Chelsea fans will probably like the sight of what they're seeing.
Yeah, because I think in the early exchanges, it really looked like Liverpool were going to open them up at will. And, they took the lead deservedly through Luis Diaz, and they had that second goal through Mo Salah didn't go in their favour, but it looked like that was like the turning point. When their goal got overturned, I think at 2-0, I think it's going to be very difficult for Chelsea to get back in that game. But that goal gets ruled out very quickly. Chelsea started to assert themselves in the game and get back in the game, and impressively, they started to take control of the game. Disasi got the goal from a corner kind of that got headed out and then went back in. That that moment happened, and then very quickly Chilwell had a goal run round the keeper and he scored, but unfortunately it was just a hairbreadth offside. And all of a sudden Chelsea were the ones looking really good. And then the second half, I was very disappointed with Liverpool. They until Nunez came on late on, they very rarely tested Chelsea. I think they were going way too direct. Their build-up play was non-existent, and Chelsea were just able to consistently win the ball back and build up from the back and create openings against them. And they'll feel a bit unfortunate. Nick Jackson missed a few chances. He must be frustrated with that. On another day, he could have got a couple of goals, and they will be a bit disappointed at the end that they didn't win the game with the chances they created. But they could have easily lost it as well. Robert Sanchez, right at the end of the game, giving the ball away on the edge of the box, and luckily for them, it came to nothing. And Darwin Núñez did make a bit of an impact when he came on. It looked like maybe the momentum was swinging. I think a draw was probably a fair result at the end of the day. And again, a bit like Brentford Spurs, I think both teams probably not happy with the not winning, but I think they'll both would have taken a point out at the end of that game.
Yeah, with all the question marks coming into Chelsea this year, with the summer they've had, a lot of money spent, with the absolutely horror season that they had last year, I think Chelsea fans would take a bit of positivity from that game for sure. More positivity than I think when you're looking at the two fan bases, I think the Chelsea fans will be much happier with this performance than the Liverpool fans for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
And then finally, we go on to Manchester United against Wolves, which was Monday Night Football last night. It did finish 1-0 to Man United, quite shockingly enough, where we went for 3-0 each. This game was... Man United were absolutely terrible last night. They really were. I thought Wolves dominated the majority of the game. They should have won the game. Still, Sim mentioned me before this that, Wolves hardly scored a goal last year, and it didn't seem like they were going to score last night, but they huffed and puffed. They just couldn't blow that Man United wall down. Onana was on really good form. He was probably Man United's best player on the night. I think he made about 6 saves or something crazy like that. But Wolves looked really impressive. Everyone's saying Wolves are going to go down, but their midfield looked strong. Pedro Neto was looking really good. Cunha was looking really good. I mean, Gary O'Neill has this knack of turning around these kind of teams, so maybe he's doing it again at Wolves.
Yeah, have to say, Wolves were a lot of people's tips to go down this season, mine included. And on first reflection, looking at that performance, you've got to say, really impressive to go to Old Trafford and make as many chances as they did. They broke the midfield lines consistently. I thought João Gomez in the centre was an absolute breath of fresh air with his dribbling ability. I thought Matheus Cunha was an absolute. He was causing absolute havoc for Man United every time he got on the ball. He could have even got Lisandro Martinez sent off at one point when he breezed past him and decided not to go down, and that was a really big moment. But he was just breaking the lines consistently, and Man United couldn't deal with their midfield. And they didn't know how to stop it, and they're just very, very lucky that Wolves just didn't have that clinical edge in the forward line. I thought Sarabia, Cunha, all missing really presentable chances. Man United themselves, apart from the goal, I don't remember too many clear-cut opportunities they had. Rashford threatened on a couple of occasions in behind, but he didn't really look confident on the day.
Goal came out of nothing as well.
Goal came out, yeah, absolutely nothing.
Absolute
it was like a corner,
nothing,
and Wan-Bissaka kind of lobbed it into Varane. And they were lucky there was against run of play when they scored.
If I'm Gary O'Neill in this game, I walk away so frustrated, not just about the way that Wolves played, but we got to talk about that penalty at the end. Onana takes out pretty much 2 players, more or less 1, but he how is that not a penalty? I just don't understand. Like, Onana completely wipes out the player. The referee looks like he's walking over to the monitor after VAR gets called into play. And he goes and books Gary O'Neill for complaining. I was like, what the hell is this? And I'm telling you, if that happens at the other end of the pitch, the penalty gets given.
Absolute farce, considering as well, was literally right at the end of the game. It was such a crucial moment. And the fact that, Onana comes out with 2 hands, completely misses the ball, completely flatlines the Wolves attacker, I think Kalicic, who had just come on. And he was causing problems as well when he came on.
Yeah.
And VAR have admitted, the PGMO have admitted that it was a mistake and it should have been a penalty, and Gary O'Neill was right to complain. But I don't understand. There was such a lengthy VAR check. You see on the screen they're just going over and over it, and after such a long check, they decide no change of decision. I thought it was absolutely farcical, and it puts, and for me as a Tottenham fan anyway, it really puts that decision to give a penalty against Son even to more perspective, because I was saying like it was a really soft penalty for VAR to go back and check, because you've seen penalties which are much more blatant and they wave it away, and then the next day you have an absolute stonewall penalty where it was a clear and obvious error and they don't go and check it and change decision. It's like, where is the consistency in the Premier League? It's got to be so frustrating for managers when you look at those two incidents and one's checked and one isn't. And I thought it was absolutely farcical, and it robbed Wolves of a deserved point.
Yeah, and last season, right, we were doing these episodes and we were pretty much complaining about referees week in, week out on the episode. And already in the first week of the Premier League, we have something like this. And what you're saying about the Heung-min Son thing, like me personally, I said it was probably the right decision from the ref to go back and give the penalty to Brentford on the day. But after seeing that just wound me up so much. And it makes me think, like, why the hell did he give a penalty against Spurs that day? So, look, it's a ridiculous decision, absolutely ridiculous decision. Man United get away with one completely in this game, but Man United fans probably worried about their performance at home as well against Wolves.
Yeah, you got to say Mount and Bruno, I was really disappointed with them. I think when you look at the lineup, you expect it to be a bit of a 4-2-3-1, but it was actually more of a 4-3-3 with Mount and Bruno being two number 8s. But maybe it's going to take time to click because they just weren't able to impact the game whatsoever. Mount and Bruno, no interchanges between them in the final third. And actually, off the ball, they were so easily bypassed. They pretty much left Casemiro by himself, and he couldn't stop the three midfielders from advancing on them. And Mount and Bruno off the ball were all at sea. The front three as well, Garnacho, Rashford, and Anthony. I thought Anthony was absolutely atrocious whenever he got on the ball. He was so wasteful, never beat his man once, didn't create opportunities. Garnacho was bright, but without really being effective. Rashford was probably the best of the three, but again, he didn't really impact the game apart from a couple runs in behind. And the fact that, you know, they finished third last season, and you would have thought they wanted to make a statement at home that they're really going to be serious this season. Wasn't that type of performance, but at the end of the day, they did get over the line, they did get the win. So if they can improve their performance level, look, they can maybe think this is just one performance in a season which hopefully will be successful. But it's got to be a bit of a worry how bad they were, because, you know, they want to improve on last season's third place, and on that evidence, they're not going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisandro Martinez as well, going off injured at half-time. I thought it was because of the booking at the time, but I think Varane confirmed after the game it is an injury. So,
oh, wow, that's I thought it was like, yeah, he could have been sent off in that
He definitely could have been sent off. Well, he could get sent off every game, Lisandro Martinez, to be honest. He's very much similar to Cuti Romero in that sense. But I think if he's injured for any extended amount of time, Man United will be very worried about that, especially with a big game coming up against Tottenham this weekend. But let's move on to the star men. It's 14-9 to myself. Going into the star man, Sim picked João Pedro, who got a goal and 0 assists, the goal from the penalty spot, so he gets a 5 point for that one. And I picked Bruno Fernandes, who had a complete no-show in the game against Wolves last night. So you're right, Sim, I did blow my Bruno load a bit too early. As last year, I blew my Rashford load too early. I got no points and no return on that one as well. But amazingly enough, it finishes 14-all at the end of this week. So what you got to say for that, Sim?
Look, I'm a bit disappointed myself with some of the results. I should have backed myself more in the Spurs game. I just got wound up with the Ange's first game. I got too excited because I said in the preview 2-2, I was like, nah, Spurs are going to take it. When the push came to shove, I went for it. But look,
you should have done it the other way. You should have done 2-2 in this and then predicted a win on the preview.
You're right. Look, it's a learning curve, but at least João Pedro saved me from starting the season behind. So I'll take it.
All right, so let me know your reviews on all the Premier League games this weekend. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We'll see you all later in the week for another episode of Predict the Prem. See you later.